Hi everybody, I'm Jennifer and I'm Minimalist My Way. Today I wanted to talk about a kind of a big topic within the field of minimalism, which is what do you do with family heirlooms and mementos that you have from past friends or family that have passed away. So, because as a minimalist, of course, the goal is to not own a whole lot of stuff. So if someone dies and they leave a household full of their lifelong worldly possessions, it stands to reason that you are going to inherit some of those, or you are going to want to keep some of those to remember the person by. And of course, that's super normal, and I'm not saying anything against doing that. I certainly have done that myself. I've lost loved ones in my past, and I want to remember them. I want to have things that mean something to me that they owned. And I am minimalist my way, so I can do that because I say so. But everybody can, and I think it's unrealistic to ask someone, when your loved one dies, you need to leave everything there and just take pictures of it, or just, um, you know, remember them rather than keeping their things. I agree to a certain extent, and I think a lot of things can be dealt with that way by either taking pictures of the item and then letting the item go, or just by either writing down things that, maybe sitting amongst their things before they're let go, and write down the stories you can remember from all of the different things that are triggering those memories. I think that's a great thing to do. But in reality, there are going to be some very special and probably very few items that you are going to want to keep. And that is going to be completely personal to you and the person that passed away. It's going to be very different from person to person. People are going to have different memories. They're going to have different values, different spaces in their home. It's just going to be very, very personal. So I'm going to tell you my experience, and then of course, as always, use that as a jumping off point. You can kind of change what I've done just to kind of give you some ideas about what you will be most comfortable with doing, because it is hard to strike a balance between minimalism and the expectations of our society. And it is very expected that when someone passes away, their loved ones will keep their possessions in some way of honoring them. That's kind of what in America our expectations are. So it can be an issue. So when a family member passes away, typically they will leave a lot of things. Most of these items are going to be typical household items that you already own. Food and appliances and furniture and clothing and linens and toothbrushes and toothpaste, just things that everybody has in their homes. And these items typically are not going to have a lot of sentimental value, and they can be dealt with either just by throwing them away or by donating them to different causes that might have need for them, or by selling them at either an estate sale, an auction, garage sale, whatever makes the most sense for your family and your finances and your time. And I have done both of those things. When my husband's grandfather passed away, we spent weeks going through his house, getting out the things that we wanted to keep to remember him and grandma by as well. And then there was an estate auction where this swarm of people came and bid on their things, which was a little bit hard to watch. But it was very effective. We started the day with a household full of items that nobody wanted. We ended the day with money in our pocket and no more household items left. Garage sale is kind of the same way, except you're not paying an auction company to come in. And that's what we did when my grandmother had passed, and then my grandpa had to go into a nursing home. So the house needed to be sold, so we had a garage sale. And again, you're having strangers coming into your grandma and grandpa's house where you spent all those Christmases and birthdays, and they're saying, I'll give you $3 for this, and it can be very difficult too. But again, you're selling the things that you just need to get rid of that nobody else in your family said that they wanted. So that's definitely a part of it. And don't feel guilty about doing that. I mean, those are items that are going to be done away with when you die that nobody will want. Cleaning supplies and canned goods and tools and stuff. Sorry, you'll have it, but other people will have it too, and they won't need it. So don't feel guilty about that. With the money that you get from either selling these things through auction or through a garage sale, you can decide what to do with that as well. You can give it to the people that have helped in the process, which is great, and that's what we did with my grandpa. With my husband's grandparents, they took the money that was earned and they bought a kind of a memorial bench that's made out of, I don't know if it's marble or what, but it's stone of some kind, sat right in front of both of their graves, and it has their name on it, and it has a ceramic or porcelain or some kind of stone vase there so that you can put flowers in. And it just looks very nice, and it will be one of those things that looks very nice and will last for years and years and years and years and years and years, the way it was made. So, both of those things are great. Do whatever your family feels the most comfortable with. So, but what we are really here to talk about are those very few items that have sentimental value for you in particular. My first piece of advice would be honest. If there's something that really has been speaking to you for years, and you even find yourself thinking, when the time comes, I'd really like to have, that item, speak up. Let people know from the beginning what is important to you, and let them know why. And then they can kind of have that in their mind as they're going through the items. If you don't end up being offered that item, no hard feelings. You could certainly take a picture of it and let it go to wherever the family has decided it should go. There's my dog, sorry. Also be honest if there's something that the family members want you to take. Notice they're not taking it for themselves, but they don't want to get rid of it. So they're saying, hey, I'll pawn it off on her. I'll pawn it off on her, even though that's not one of the things she said she wanted. So that happens. It happens. People can't take everything themselves, but if they're having trouble letting go of it, they want somebody else to take it. So be honest. If what they're offering is not something that you want to house, store, clean, maintain, be honest and say, that's not really an item that I'm going to be able to take. Suggest some alternatives for it. If not, suggest taking a picture of it and just letting it go. So only take the things that are truly meaningful to you. And I will say from experience, and I'm sure everybody goes through this, in the beginning, I took a lot more items than what I currently own that were my grandparents or my husband's grandparents. In the beginning, you're really missing your loved one, and you just want to see them everywhere, and you're not sure what you want to let go of quite yet. And of course, this process usually happens pretty soon after they pass away, and that's hard, to be faced with that. And then now, oh, by the way, you have to go through their 80 years worth of belongings, in a relatively short amount of time. So be easy on yourself. If you have a doubt in your mind, take the item. You can always get rid of it later, but you can't get it back once you've gotten rid of it. So that would be my advice. So I'll give you some suggestions of what to take or what I took, not what you should take, but some kind of guidelines. So I try to only take items that I will have room in my home to display for like all year round. So I don't take anything seasonal unless it is seasonal and I'm going to display it all year round. And I don't take anything too large that I don't have room for in my home, or that I don't have room for, but if I kind of have room for it, but I know that that's going to make me stressed out because then the room is going to be too cluttered. So I try not to do that. Um, that being said, I'll show you some of the items that I have kept, and I will try not to cry, but no guarantees. Okay, so the weirdest thing that I kept from my grandma after she died was a can of corn. And to me, this is very, very special. It expired several years ago, so it's not worth anything to anyone else, I'm sure. I couldn't even donate it at this point. But my grandma and I would go grocery shopping together, and I saw her buy this can of corn. And so she was very poor growing up, and then as she was raising her family, they were pretty poor, and I'm sure that there were times when they thought about how are we going to put food on the table this week. And I guarantee you she was not buying name brand canned vegetables at that time, nor the little teeny tiny cans of them for single servings. So this represents a big splurge for her. She'd reached a point in her life where she could afford to buy the exact brand name she wanted, and she bought it in the amount that she wanted, and she even bought it with the flip top so she could get it open without having to crank on the can opener. So that is very special to me. I have kept it for a long time, and it reminds me a lot of her. Another item that I got, a lot of these are from her, so you can kind of tell. This was an item that everybody wanted. So it's a picture of my grandma's recipe box and her recipe cards that were inside of it. So, and that's very important to a lot of the family recipes. You want to be able to duplicate the things that you've been eating at holidays for your whole life, and it would be a real shame if those were lost. But the problem with that is there's only one recipe box, and there's only one set of recipe cards that were in her handwriting. And I even found some in there that were from my great-grandmother as well. So, I mean, we're talking generations of handwriting in this box and recipes. So what I did is I scanned all of the recipes from the box that were in her handwriting. And then I made this scrapbook type thing from the recipes. So this one, it was very faded. This one was actually from my great-grandmother. And so then underneath it, I wrote out I took time to decipher the writing, and then I printed it out so anybody could follow the recipe easily. And it said, here, this particular one, again, is from my great-grandmother. It says, "Here is how I baked the beans yesterday." So I'm wondering if they went to eat at her house, and then someone said, "These beans are great." And then she thought, well, I'll give her the recipe, which is very sweet. So it says 3 cans northern beans, 10 cents a can at standard. So this is like, just in addition to the recipes, she's telling her where she can go get it at a good price. We don't have any standard grocery stores now, so I'm assuming it was just like a little, place that they went. This one is my grandma's handwriting. So, and it's lemon Jello cake. And we did have that quite often. Miracle Whip cake. She made that as well all the time. So yeah, it's just like going down memory lane. So I printed up one of these books for everybody in my family, so that each little family could have their own. And I included some pages at the back so you could add recipes if you wanted. And then I also included like some pictures of my grandma in the kitchen that I found. So things like this can be done for items like that where you're like, man, everybody wants one of these and there's only one. So other times you kind of have the opposite problem where you find something and maybe it's a big quilt or it's a large collection of some kind, and you're thinking, that's really neat and that reminds me of them and that's special, but I don't have the room to store 10 quilts that have been used and are ripped and tattered anyway. I don't have the room to store this huge collection of whatever. Um, and so what I would suggest for that is to take a portion, take a sample from whatever it is. So if it's a quilt, and you could go to maybe an outer corner that's not torn and not as worn, maybe, and you could just cut a small piece of the fabric out. A lot of times people will either sign their quilts or they will stitch their name, or they have these labels made up. My family does that, where they put the label on it, says, like, made with care by whoever. And maybe you'd want to cut out that section, but at least you would have a small part of the whole, and then you could, and so could several of your family members, and then you could either frame that, put it in a shadow box, something like that, with maybe a picture of whoever sewed it, just so you can enjoy the items and you can honor them. In my opinion, taking boxes and boxes and boxes of stuff and then storing them, in your basement or your attic, that they're just going to deteriorate. And to me, that's not honoring the person's memory. Also, if the boxes and boxes of stuff and the thought of the things inside the box is deteriorating stresses you out, which it stresses me out, that family member that died does not want to cause you those feelings of overwhelm and guilt, and worry. They wouldn't want you to feel those things. So, just take that for what it is. And I would rather have like a little corner of a quilt framed that I look at every day as I go down the hallway, than to take the entire quilt, put it in the basement. It gets musty down there. It's eaten by, whatever mice, or it gets mold on it or whatever. I mean, to me, that would just break my heart a lot more than snipping a corner off, and letting the other family members do too. Obviously, don't do that if you don't have permission from the family to cut it apart. But, I think that would be a really great way to handle that. My grandma, she kind of did that for me already. She kept her wedding dress. And I believe she got married. Oh, yep, she wrote it. She wrote it on the envelope. Of course she did. So she got married September 15th of 1951. And then this envelope is dated 10/26 of 1990. So she kept her wedding dress that long, from 1951 to 1990. But this envelope says, buttons from dress I was married in, had to throw dress away as it had mildew on it. So somehow her own dress was damaged, but she thought to cut the buttons off. So I have the buttons in the envelope, and I keep it in my office with a wedding picture of her. So these black buttons on her dress, that's what I have in the envelope. So that was kind of neat, and obviously an idea that she she did herself during her lifetime. But then I treasured the envelope just about as much as I treasure the buttons. So again, something where you're taking something from a collection or from an item. It could be clothing, it could be whatever, and you're just keeping a small sample just to remember them by. And then one thing I did do is I did make a commitment to take a collection of china from my in-laws. My husband's grandpa had bought the whole set of Lenox china. It's the, here's one of the plates. It is really, really pretty. This is Winter Greetings Scenic, it says. But there were it was only 4 place settings and then a serving set. But each place setting had a dinner plate, a salad plate, a bread plate, a bowl, a cup, and a saucer. So each place setting had that. Luckily, there were only 4 place settings. But then the serving set, which that is a part of, it had that big platter. And then it had, actually, I counted 4 before, but when I went back and looked, there were 6 round platters that each featured a different winter bird. They're so pretty. But I made the commitment to display, or to keep all of those, and I displayed them on a bookshelf, and I even got like those plate easel things that you can set the plates up. So this one, when it's on it's set up like this on the bookshelf, so you can see the pretty birds. Because if it was laying down, you really couldn't see them. And I just remember the first time my mother-in-law came over, and her sisters as well, and they said, you know, our mother never had the space to display that, and we only saw it, you know, sometimes at Christmas time, but we didn't ever really see it other than that. And they said it's really special that we can finally see it every day. And you know, that's kind of things like that that make you feel good. And I don't care if it's Christmas or winter, I have it out in the summertime too. It's totally fine. Another thing that you can do with items, especially jewelry items, clothing items, things like that that can be altered fairly easily, is to remake what you inherit into something that is really special to you, because it may have been special to someone else, but if you never met that person or didn't have a lot of experience with that item with that person, then it might not be special to you, but you could make it so. So this is my husband's great grandmother's wedding band, and it's rose gold. It's very thin. It's very, very pretty. But I never met her, but they did want to get rid of it again, and they offered it to me, and I thought, you know, absolutely. So what I did with it was I needed to get it sized anyway because it didn't fit my finger. So I went to get it sized, and I thought it was kind of plain because it was just the band. There was no stone. And so I took the promise ring that my husband gave me when we were just dating and teenagers, and it had this blue topaz in it. And so I had the jeweler mount the stone into this ring because I never wore the promise ring really much since I got married and I had my wedding set. So this made this very, very special to me. You know, I like the history behind it, but now that with this stone in it, it's something that is part of my story too. So that's something to consider doing. And now, you know, now I wear this all the time and I just love it. So, and I know my aunt has done that with a lot of pieces of my grandmother's too, where she's taken the stones out or the pearls, and she's done something with them where she wears them now. And it really wasn't that expensive. I had to pay to get the ring size and then for the prongs and for the mounting, but I sold the gold from the ring that the stone came out of because I didn't need it, obviously, since it was just empty. And so that defrayed a lot of the cost of having it altered. So, I mean, we're talking, I think $20 or $25 to end up having that changed in the end. And it's great. So those are just some ideas and some things that I have done. And it just depends on the person about what mementos you will take and what you will remember. My grandpa was a veteran, and he had an American flag hanging in his garage for I don't know how long, longer than I've been alive. And so I took it and I hung it in my garage. I get to see it every day. He was also a mechanic and a race car driver, and I took a poster that he had saved. It was just a flimsy little paper poster. I'm shocked that when I was trying to get it off the wall, I was like, this thing's gonna rip. It's awful because it's just so thin. But I was able to get it down. It was in his garage, and he had handwritten in the date, and it was 1980. Because the poster just said, you know, July, whatever. It didn't have a date, you know, because it was just meant to be a short-term poster for that year for whatever race it was promoting. But he wrote 1980 in his handwriting, so I have that. And I was 2 when he wrote that. So that means a lot to me, and I've taken that and I've hung that up inside my house, actually, in a stairwell down to the basement. It just depends on what connects you to somebody, and it could be something that has no value at all to anybody other than you, but those are the things that I think are the most special. So let me just look at my notes a little bit. This is something that is very difficult, very emotional when you're going through your loved ones things, especially if they've just passed away. But I encourage you to take a breath, take your time, get as much family together at one time as you can to go through the items when you choose to go through the house, and encourage people to tell stories about that person when they come across an item that sparks a story for them. And I learned so much about all these family members just by going through their things with other people in the family. I'm one of the youngest generation, so I wasn't around when these people did a lot of the really cool events in their life: military service, jobs, having kids, traveling. It's amazing, the things that people do in their life. So, and sometimes you never would know unless you go through the things with other family members that know what is this. I'd find something and be like, I don't know what this is. Somebody tell me what this is. And lo and behold, usually it would be some crazy trinket from someone's trip to Paris or someone's military career. It's crazy. So, not an easy time, but a time when a lot of bonding can happen, a lot of learning can happen, and a lot of closure can happen too. I feel very good about the things that I still have, and I interact with these things on a daily basis, and that to me honors my loved ones. And when more people die, I'll take little mementos from them as well, and that doesn't mean I'm not a minimalist just because I have those around. So, as always, I am Minimalist My Way, and I encourage you to be Minimalist Your Way. Check me out on Facebook or my blog at www.minimalistmyway.com. Thank you.